Rias decides that both Issei and Asia have done enough pamphlet distribution, and that it is about time for the two to get their own familiars. Rias and the others then reveal their own familiars, but are interrupted when the student council arrives. Rias then reveals to Issei that the current president of the student council, Sona Citri, is also a high-class devil and hails from the Citri clan. Both Rias and Sona then introduce their new servants to each other as Issei and Saji start a new rivalry amongst themselves. When Saji reveals that he was given the right to have a familiar by Sona, it overlaps with Rias' plan to have Issei and Asia one, causing both Rias and Sona to be troubled by the fact that only one of them can get a familiar at one time. This prompts them, along with their fellow queens, to decide to have a tennis match in order to decide who gets to receive their familiar first. However, the results remain inconclusive as their match ends in a draw. Rias and Aquino then discuss what match they should have next before finally deciding to have a dodgeball match. The dodgeball match ends with the Occult Research Club winning, albeit with extensive damage to school property due to their extravagant usage of demonic powers in the game. At the Familiar Forest, Issei and the others meet the Familiar Master, Satoji, who guides them throughout the Familiar Forest, discovering an Undine along the way. Issei's expectations of having an Undine as a familiar, due to his assumption of them being beautiful water spirits, are crushed mercilessly when he sees that the real Undines are burly old muscular women wearing pink togas, causing the entourage to continue their quest for familiars. Later on, after encountering a baby sprite dragon, Issei originally wanted to capture it as his familiar, but later changes his opinion when a slime appears and dissolves the clothes of all the girls present. Issei, impressed by the slime's capabilities and its dauntless potential for perverseness, then decides that he would have it as his familiar instead of the sprite dragon. This however ends in failure as Rias and the others, disgusted by the slime's lecherous nature, exterminate it much to Issei's woe. As Issei desperately tries to protect the last of the slime on Asia, the baby sprite dragon attacks him and destroys off all the remaining slime by electrocuting it. The Familiar Master then reveals that the baby sprite dragon has taken a liking to Asia, who then proceeds to make the baby sprite dragon her familiar and names it Rasei. Issei dreams of himself marrying Rias, which indirectly leads him to get in touch with his inner dragon. Later at school, Issei, Matsuda, and Motohama are seen peeping at the girls of the Kendo Club in the girls' changing room before getting roughed up by Kaneko. At the clubroom, Asia is seen healing Issei with Rias saying that she has no problem with showing her body to Issei. After Issei and the others leave, Rias and Aquino have a private conversation on Rias' recent favoritism towards Issei. As Aquino leaves, an unknown magic circle is shown to appear before Rias in the clubroom. Back in Issei's room at night, Rias suddenly appears, oddly asking Issei to take her virginity out of the blue. Before Rias can continue, a new figure appears and interrupts them, introducing herself as Graphia. Rias then leaves as she's escorted out by Graphia. The next day, Issei meets Riser Phoenix, another high-class devil from the Phoenix clan and Rias' fiancé. Rias and Riser then have a dispute, due to the disagreement caused by Rias' blatant refusal to marry Riser, with the latter's intention of marrying Rias, so that it doesn't stain his family name. Seeing the dispute between Rias and Riser escalate, Graphia offers mediation terms, proposing either of them sort out their differences by playing a rating game with each other. After it is decided that they would have a rating game against each other to solve the problem, Riser introduces his full peerage to Rias and the others, causing Issei to look upon Riser's female-only peerage with a mixture of jealousy, envy, and admiration. However, after seeing Riser shamelessly flirt with his queen, Yubaluna, paying no mind to his fiancé's presence, Issei gets angry and challenges Riser to a fight, but immediately loses, being struck down by Mira, one of Riser's pawns, whom he also claims is his peerage's weakest member. Riser then leaves after Rias accepts the terms for the rating game. In order to prepare for the rating game that's scheduled after 10 days against Riser Phoenix and his peerage, Rias prepares a cottage in an uninhabited mountain for the Occult Research Club to begin their training activities. However, despite training with Kiba in sword fighting, with Aquino on magic, and finally, with Kaneko on close quarters combat, Issei fails miserably, while Asia shows some talent in magic. However, later on, while cooking using magic, Issei notices that upon imagining Aquino's naked body, he can harness his demonic power to peel the potatoes with remarkable ease. Coupling it with the feeling he got when he first activated his sacred gear against Calawarner, Issei finally gets an idea for developing a new move. Meanwhile, Grafia is seen discussing with her master, Surzex, on Rias' decision to accept the rating game challenge. During nighttime, Issei sneaks out and starts practicing the new move that he earlier thought of, alone, until Asia shows up to his help. The next day, Rias starts explaining about the history of the devils, angels, and fallen angels, which in turn leads to the creation of the rating games. Later on at night, when Issei has a conversation with Rias about Riser's abilities, Rias tells him the reason that she had for rejecting her engagement, causing Issei to wallow over his own weakness. The next morning, Issei once again has a sparring match with Kiba. However, having trained rigorously for 10 days, his and the Occult Research Club's various efforts pay off when Issei manages to power up his boosted gear enough to use Dragon Shot, which he then uses against Kiba, causing an entire mountainside to be leveled as a collateral. This not only secures his first win against his fellow comrade, but also causes Rias' training regimen to achieve to its desired conclusion. 1 hour before the rating game, while Issei prepares himself inside his room, Asia comes in and starts a conversation with him, seeking his mental support. After Issei's alarm clock starts to ring, the two of them leave for the Occult Research Club together. Arriving at the club room, Issei and his friends make final preparations and prepare themselves mentally as they wait for the rating game against Riser and his team to commence. Before leaving, Sona and Tsubaki arrives to show their support for Rias and wishes her good luck. The Gremory team is then transported to a dimension where they see a replica of Kuo Academy, which is to be used as the field for the rating game. Prior to the start of the match, Rias formulates a strategy and orders Akino, Yuto, and Kaneko to place traps in preparation against Riser's assault. While the others head off to make their preparations, Rias, then, unseals part of the seal she previously placed on Issei due to his lack of strength to withstand it. After finishing their preparations, Issei and Kaneko head to the gymnasium where they are confronted by 4 of Riser's servants, his rook, Shuelan, and pawns, Mira, Al and Nell. Noting the strength of the rook, Kaneko decides to battle it out with Shuelan, leaving Issei to deal with the remaining 3 pawns. Initially facing trouble due to being outnumbered 3-1, Issei manages to overcome the odds with the doubling ability of the boosted gear and succeeds in his task of immobilizing his opponents after revealing his new move, Dress Break, which strips the girls off their clothes. At the same time, Kaneko successfully immobilizes Shuelan by disabling her movements in a submission hold. The two then proceed to leave the gymnasium, allowing Akino to deal the finishing blow to the defeated 4 by destroying the gymnasium in one large-scale attack. Meanwhile, inside the forest, Kiba confronts another 3 of Riser's pawns, Shuria, Marion and Burant, who got caught in the trap set by Rias' team while they were on their way to the enemy headquarters. Elsewhere, Kaneko and Issei decide to move on, initiating the next phase of their plan. Kaneko, disgusted by Issei's move, decides to walk ahead of Issei, only to be taken out by a surprise attack from Riser's queen, Yubeluna. The episode ends with Riser telling Rias to not underestimate him. Continuing over from the previous episode, Issei challenges Yubeluna in an attempt to avenge Kaneko, but is stopped by Akino, who then proceeds to fight her in his place. Issei then regroups with Yuto after Rias is forced to revise her strategy due to Akino's fight with Yubeluna, finally deciding to face Riser herself, despite both Issei's and Yuto's staunch objection. With no options left, both men proceed to challenge the remaining members of Riser's peerage, which are Ravel, Riser's sister and bishop, Carloman, Riser's knight, Isabella, Riser's rook, Cirrus, Riser's other knight, and Ni and Li, Riser's twin pawns. Yuto then fights Carloman while Issei fights Isabella, defeating Isabella after using Dress Break to disable her movements before defeating her with his Dragon Shot. However, upon seeing that Rias is at a disadvantage in her fight against Riser, Issei, hoping to be more useful to her, allows his boosted gear to further evolve, transforming it into the boosted gear gift, before transferring the boosted power to Yuto. It is this transferred power that allows Yuto to successfully defeat Riser's remaining pieces, aside from Ravel, in one wide-scale attack with his sword Birth. The victory, however, is short-lived by an unexpected announcement of Akino being defeated and Yuto's sudden elimination by Yubeluna. This causes Issei to ignore Ravel's warning, as he heads into the enemy headquarters alone, before promoting into Queen and heading to the rooftop to assist Rias and Asia. Issei, however, was incapable of doing anything as his body had reached its limit due to the burden of the boosted power that was continuously being placed upon his body, and was nearly thrashed to the point of near death by Riser. The episode ends with Rias, due to her concern for Issei's well-being, resigning, thus confirming Riser's victory. When Issei wakes up, finding himself passed out on his own bed after the raiding game against Riser and his peerage, he blames himself, knowing that it was his powerlessness that forced Rias to resign. Soon after, Grafia, Surzek's queen, arrives at his home and gives Issei a magic circle that will allow him to attend the Gremory Phoenix engagement party in the underworld. When Issei arrives at the designated area and blatantly crashes the party, Surzek interferes, offering arbitration terms to settle the dispute by hosting a one-on-one battle between Riser and Issei. With Rias' engagement on the line, however, when the battle begins, it is shown that Issei traded his left arm to the dragon that resides within him, in exchange for extreme power that will only last for 10 seconds. Issei is able to overpower Riser with his newfound power, but is unable to defeat or deal him critical damage, due to the latter's constitution as a phoenix, especially in the brief 10 seconds window he has. However, even after the 10 seconds are up, Issei manages to win when he surprisingly attacks a slightly weakened Riser with holy objects that he had earlier acquired from Asia, causing the latter to experience excruciating spiritual pain. After winning the battle, it is revealed that Surzek would have, if necessary, allowed a griffin to help Issei and Rias escape. The episode ends with Rias kissing Issei while flying on the griffin, and then cuts to a moment where Rias tells Issei's parents that she plans to move in with him.